When I ask startup founders what an MVP means, I get wildly different answers. It's a landing page, it's a prototype, it's the first version of our product. They can't all be right, but they all use the same term, and this creates real problems in practice. And so in this video, I'm going to break down how the term MVP lost its meaning along the way, why this matters, and how to reclaim the concept with a clearer definition that actually helps your startup move forward toward product market fit. Hi there, if you're new to this channel, my name is Ash Maurya. I'm an entrepreneur and author and the creator of the popular one-page business modeling tool, Lean Canvas. On this channel, I share systematic strategies and techniques for starting and growing a business. So let's get into it. Most people associate MVP with Eric Ries and the Lean Startup, and the term blew up after that. But while Eric popularized the term, he didn't invent it. The concept was actually introduced about a decade earlier by Frank Robinson in 2001. Robinson was running his own software development company and noticed something problematic. His teams were bragging about adding hundreds of new features to their products, treating feature counts as a badge of honor. Back then, more felt like more. But he observed that adding more features doesn't usually improve the business case. Adding more features just makes the product longer to build, less usable, and most importantly, carries a lot more risk. His solution was what he called the minimum viable product. He described it as being the right size product for a company and for the customer. Just big enough to cause adoption, satisfaction, and sales, but not so big to be bloated and risky. In other words, it was the smallest version of a product that delivered the maximum ROI divided by risk. Then came the lean startup era. Fast forward a decade, Eric observed that the way we build products had drastically changed. Products had gone from being delivered in a box to being delivered over the internet. And customers no longer wanted to just wait for long release cycles, they wanted value delivered to them continuously. Some of the best companies at the time, like Amazon, Facebook, and Google, were already leveraging the internet to release early and often and using customer feedback loops to iterate on their products quickly. He recognized that speed of learning, not execution, had become the new unfair advantage, which he codified in this image that became the bumper sticker for the lean startup movement. The basic premise behind this build, measure, learn loop was to 1. Build something quickly, measure how customers interact with it, and learn from those measurements to build something even better, while minimizing total time through the loop. Since learning is a way to de-risk a product, he co-opted the term MVP and defined it as the version of a new product which allows a team to collect the maximum amount of validated learning about customers with the least amount of effort. Then, like all good things, things got a little messy. Drew Houston shared a case study at Eric's Startup Lesson Learn conference in 2010 on how he used a 3-minute video demonstrating how Dropbox would work while he was still building it. This video racked up 5,000 email addresses and helped him get into Y Combinator. The video then went on to collect another 75,000 email addresses, which helped them greatly de-risk demand for their product. Was it a brilliant tactic? Absolutely. Was it a product? No. It was a demo or a promise of a product. It wasn't until 18 months later that they publicly launched their actual product to 100,000 users, which shot up to 1 million in short order. Now, this was such a massive success story that people reduced the punchline of build, measure, learn to simply minimizing total time through the loop. And the emphasis shifted entirely to speed of learning with minimum effort, to where the product part of the MVP began to get forgotten. This is when we started seeing all kinds of things being called MVPs. Things like landing pages and mockups and prototypes. Basically, anything you could use to learn from customers was being passed off as an MVP. So what's the big deal? Why is this a problem? Because I believe definitions matter. If we don't call a duck, it gets really confusing to understand what people mean, especially in the world of products where precision is key. Building a landing page is a far cry from building the first version of a working product, so we're not talking about splitting just a few hairs here. These are very different things that all get rolled up into one big term. And as if that wasn't confusing enough, people then also started questioning the viable part of MVP. Now, viability is only one type of product risk, and back when Robinson coined the term, maximizing viability or ROI was probably the riskiest thing on his mind. But if you are building a multi-sided product with users and customers like, say, a YouTube or TikTok today, desirability, not viability, is usually what's riskiest at the outset. If YouTube didn't attract millions of users, their customers, advertisers, would simply not show up. This led to Andrew Chen proposing the term minimum desirable product, Brian DeHaaf proposing the term minimum lovable product, and Jason Cohen proposing another term, simple, lovable, and complete. And there were a few others like minimum marketable product, minimum awesome product, and a bunch more. We have reached the point where the original term seems to have lost its meaning, and some people have even dug their trenches and picked their version of a definition that works for them. If that's you, you can stop watching now. If, on the other hand, you'd like to see my attempt to reconcile these definitions into what I believe is a more coherent and precise set of definitions, then keep on watching. First, I'm also in the camp that especially today, viability isn't the only product risk that matters. And so we need another term to move beyond just putting the spotlight on viability. Where I differ, though, is I don't believe desirability alone deserves that spotlight. You can build a highly desirable product, but if you don't address viability too, the product will die a quick death. Remember the .com days. And what about feasibility? We take that for granted, but science fiction novels are full of highly desirable and potentially viable ideas that we simply don't know how to build today. This is why I encourage the startups I work with to think of MVP not just as a minimum viable product, but as a minimum desirable, viable, feasible product. Now, I admit MDVFP is quite a mouthful, and it was intended to be more of a functional definition than a practical one. Until I found a way to reconcile all three risks into one term that I still managed to call MVP. And here's how I did it. The true product of an entrepreneur isn't building a working solution, but a working business model. And every business model has to fulfill three jobs. It has to create value to customers through a unique value proposition. It has to deliver value to customers through your solution. And finally, it has to capture some of this value back in the form of payment or revenue. The common denominator across all working business models is value. And so I repurposed MVP to simply mean minimum valuable product. And it's the smallest solution that creates, delivers, and captures monetizable value from your users and customers. The minimum part is still important because we want to scope down for speed. The product part matters because we are building something real, but I emphasize valuable because ultimately that's what matters for your business model. So what about the Dropbox video tactic or landing pages or other types of experiments that could be used to de-risk building an actual MVP? Where do they all fit in? I used another term, offer, for that. An offer to me is the smallest solution that promises value to your users and customers. The job of an offer is to de-risk demand for your MVP before actually building it. That's exactly what Drew did with his Dropbox demo video that went viral. But Dropbox is an outlier. Simply putting up a demo of a half-baked MVP will not work. So how do you define the right MVP that grabs attention, builds trust, and converts visitors into customers? For that, you should check out this video over here where I outline a step-by-step process for designing what should go into your MVP and offer. Thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.